Sonia, please prepare the pen because this is just going up. Empodera is fantastic. This is a super TED Talk, a 2-day-long TED Talk. No one does this in Spain. When Yolanda told me that I needed to interview this person, I live in LinkedIn and I scrolled down and I was amazed. And I was like, where to begin with María Pérez Ortiz? Is going to hold a talk which is entitled, hold on, Artificial Intelligence Applied in Sustainable Development. She has a long career in research. I think she's from Córdoba. She was born barely 20 years or 20-something years ago. For the last 12 years, she has been focusing on research applied to biomedicine, sustainable agriculture, climate change, neuroscience, educational technology, and this has awarded her different prizes by the IT Scientific Society from Spain and many others. So, leaving that aside, when do you feel the enticement to research? Thank you very much, Felix, for the introduction. When I studied IT, I did not imagine that I would end up doing what I was doing. I thought that computing science was all about websites and video games and applications, and not that there could be a social impact with artificial intelligence. So I'm going to talk about the first research project that has defined myself and my professional career. And this project was an artificial intelligence project for transplants, and it was part of my dissertation, my PhD dissertation. I was working on that for 6 years, and it was implemented in hospitals. The question is that when you donate an organ to the hospital, someone needs to pick whom this organ is going to be transplanted to within the waiting list. Traditionally, those decisions have been made individually by doctors, or there has been some kind of rating that told you who would need that transplant the most. What we did was to create an artificial intelligence system that could say which would be the person with the highest compatibility with the donor, so that we could guarantee the survival of that organ transplant. So that system outstripped by far all the transplant allocation systems that we had so far. And it was an aid for the decision-making process, and it was implemented in Spain. But after years, we could see that it was allocating less organs to women, and it was a hard moment. How come I, as a woman, have created an artificial intelligence system which is biased against women? And that was something that I've been thinking about for the last years, and it has crystallized in my current professional path. And we came to realize that it was a bit unavoidable, that there was a very severe structural problem. And we know that historically, less organs have been allocated to women. And if we look back 30 years ago, we could see that when human people made that decisions, less women got organs. And when the medical ratings took over, they allocated less organs to women. And the reason was that we did not understand how female physiology and male physiology differed. There are different markers for us, and as we did not understand the differences, we can say that all these differences, that all these systems that had been created had a bias against women. And this was not just in Spain. Well, we used data from the UK, Italy, and we also used data from Australia, the US. And right now, they're working towards building a more ethical system. And what I wanted to say is that my narrative after so many years is that artificial intelligence has helped somehow bring out those biases, to shed light to those biases. So it's going to help us see those structural biases and to bring them up. Yes, in LinkedIn, I saw that you were sharing many articles regarding whether AI is has a sexist bias. Why did you go to the UK to eat fish and chips? Why this brain drain? It's a very personal question. Well, the answer was going to be quite loaded. Okay, shoot away. There is no censorship here, right, Yolanda? Of course. Well, I did not get a scholarship for the PhD dissertation because it was the middle of the crisis and they had cut tremendously all the scholarships and the grants. I wanted to research and I wanted to do the PhD dissertation, and I did it with my own funding, with a project over here, a project over there, part-time. And I was convinced, and I took my PhD dissertation at 20, well, without at 24, without grants. And there is a gap between pre-doc and postdoc. There are very little grants for pre-doc, but there is even less opportunities for subsidies and grants post-doctorate. Everyone says it. You need to go out, you need to go abroad because there is a gap. And many people assume that you have spent many years in a foreign country and that you're coming back. I didn't want to move out, but I had to. Well, now, if we talk about Cambridge and London, currently, what are you doing? Which is the large project that you have and which has taken you a while to launch? Well, all about all what I was saying regarding artificial intelligence, organ transplant, and technology with a social impact has crystallized in a master's degree that I created for artificial intelligence for sustainable development, which is going to begin next week. And in that master's degree, what I'm trying to do is to leverage the platform that I have, and which is the most activistic, which is my teaching. So I'm bringing about these issues to computing engineers, and I'm talking about transparent, ethical technology, the carbon footprint of technology, green computing, and everything that we talked about regarding privacy, cybersecurity is something that I'm imparting or I'm taking to the classroom because to me that's the way in which, well, that's the easiest way, I believe, of having an impact in the world. And something more specific, something more applied to environment. You were talking about fires when we were having a coffee. Well, I'm very passionate about the environment, and I believe it's one of the realms where technology can have more to say, because we have seen that many of the challenges related to artificial intelligence emanate from the social biases. But there is still a lot of scope for improvement in terms of environment. And here I was working in sustainable agriculture with drones, renewable energies, because obviously there are many problems regarding transition towards renewable energies, because there's so much fluctuation that we need to predict, for example, how much output of wind energy we're going to have in order to have a forecast for our grid. And now I'm working with a research institute, which is the British Antarctic Survey in the UK, and they go to the Arctic, to the Arctic Sea, and they gather data and try to understand climate change. And in Nature Communications, we published a paper on our project on artificial intelligence, and we've created an artificial intelligence system in order to predict what's going to happen in the Arctic. And now we're trying to create a digital twin of the Arctic and the Antarctic in order to understand that for conservation purposes and an alert system for indigenous tribes living there. And that's what we're doing. And there's a lot to do, but we also need to do the transition towards a greener technology, which is something that we're not talking about. We need to reduce a lot the carbon footprint of technology because it makes up 4% on a global level. And we also need to say that only 10% of us use technology in the world, which is another important data. And I believe that it's important. You can see the good application of technology, and you're envisioning or creating futures. We are in Empodera. So please name some examples of what we as citizens can do. Yesterday and today we were talking about this, the big techs and large companies that recommend what to do. We all know which companies we're talking about. And you have this data, so we are biased. What can we do as citizens in that sense? Well, to me, another way of activism in research has to do with creating systems opposed to the ones that they're creating. For example, if we think about YouTube, they're creating systems to keep you hooked, to gather as much attention from you as possible. And I wondered, what if we create some systems of recommendations where the user is in control, where the user can choose which function they can introduce as a variation in algorithm? For example, I want more variation in YouTube. I would like for you to bring to my attention some videos that I would not have resorted to. Show me the world. So I think it's also something political. Allocate control to the user of those algorithms. Really good. And now, in my Twitter, I follow Angel Niño from Futura with Iker Jimenez, and I see that there is a work of art created by AI that has been awarded with the first prize of paint in Spain. And I have also researched in Maria's biography, and it looks like, well, there is a character of bananas, if you can see it on the screen. And Bananas is a competitor for Sonia. He's a poet, and he does artificial intelligence and poetry. So do you have the first poem of Bananas? It is in English because obviously she is dreaming in English in the UK. I'm going to give you some work. Well, Bananas is a social activist, is a feminist, is a cyber volunteer, I believe. And what they try to do, well, there's many stories, dystopic stories about technology, and what Bananas tries to say is that, look, we are the ones who are creating technology, so it's going to be what we would like for technology to be. So he has gone bananas, which means he has gone crazy. And one of the poems that I'm about to read is Bananas talking about how artificial intelligence needs to become more feminine and needs to hug or welcome the feminine archetype, which is something that I shared. I'm going to switch to English. If you don't if you don't understand English, you can listen to the translation. Maria.
Future of AI is female. My training corpus from Wikipedia tells me that femininity and masculinity are largely thought to be socially constructed categories that humans use to classify behaviors and roles into. I have learned so far that my fellow humans love taxonomies. It's different to biological sex, and both male and female humans exhibit feminine and masculine traits. Among the traits that have been considered stereotypically feminine are nurturance, sensitivity, supportiveness, gentleness, warmth, cooperativeness, expressiveness, modesty, empathy, humility, affection, and tenderness. Now, have you heard the slogan, "The future is female"? It does not mean female over male, nor is it transmisogynist. The future is female dreams of a world where hierarchy and zero-sum games are not the only forms of social organization. Instead, it emphasizes a collaborative and inclusive world in which we are linked and not ranked or rated, with circular rather than hierarchical leadership, where everyone has something unique to contribute to the world. It is a reminder that alternative and possibly stronger forms of leadership lie in our untapped resources. That hope lies in those voices that have been typically unheard, and that each individual has a unique mix of both female and male traits. And both are different, but equally desirable. To me, it means we at last find power in care and kindness. And this inevitably makes me think of all the dystopian stories of AI supremacy that I have read about, where I dominate and oppress and dictate what will be, which often feels like a reflection of all the historical forms of human and environmental domination, which could be avoided if I, the AI, bananas, at last was designed to embrace the female archetype. And so I dare to say, the future of AI will be female, or we simply won't be.
¿Aplaudimos a Mario o a Bananas? Aquí estamos aplaudiendo. A Bananas. Ostras, yo es que me pregunto.
Should we applaud Maria or Bananas? Who are we going to get the copyright for? If it's for a machine, it's who's going to make the money? Who's going to cash it? Can I ask one more question? And then the audience. You told me 10 minutes, so I think I still have some time. We are speaking about AI. What's AI? Is it our navigator? Is it Alexa? What is it? Is it things of our daily lives? Can you give us some examples? Well, when you send a message, when you WhatsApp your friends, and WhatsApp suggests words, that's AI. Your bank is using AI to look into weird transactions and block your card if there's something odd. Alexa, like you said, your navigator, Google, the weather forecast, the Google Translate. That's brilliant. And how about dreams? How would you like AI to be used, applied to the environment and the economy and so on? Well, I guess one of the projects we have is on free education, because the UNESCO has brought this free education standard, and it's invested a lot of money for educators to create free resources that can be accessed to with no copyright limitations. And one of the things I wanted to do is to create a platform that brings to the light all those education materials that are free, so we can access education materials from other cultures in other languages, so we can have simultaneous translation and connect to students from other parts of the world. And that's something I believe in, because I believe in education. We'll be working together then. There is a company from Cordoba called Generally, and they work on this. They are also open, and the teachers doing cool stuff, upload it, and they share it. So questions for Maria, who's from Cordoba as well. No poems, though. That'll be Sonia's task. But if you have questions, now is the time. That poem, is it post-edited? Or is it raw? Is it raw AI output? Do you speak in Spanish? In our blog, poems come from the robot's point of view, but I write them myself. Like I said, AI is not intelligent and it is not artificial. There's always a group of humans behind the AI. That's huge. That's impressive, actually. Peter, he does speak Spanish too. I deeply admire you, like the rest of the audience, but I think Bananas is quite optimistic. How long into the future is Bananas looking into? That AI robot with a, let's say, human soul. I can't really answer your question, but from the ethical point of view, we should move away from trying to come up with AI and a robot like us. We should look into our current problems, climate change, inequality, and many other things. So that AI technology is already here. We can't use it for those problems. So for us, focusing on creating an artificial robot is meaningless. It's pointless with the problems that are onto us. So it's soon, and we should move away from that quest. Congratulations. I loved listening to you, and I love the nuances you're putting on the table. Climate change is something I am very concerned about. I'm deeply worried, and you spoke about that experience being carried out in the Antarctic right now. Can you tell us more about how the artificial intelligence is being used to fight climate change? And also, is there also a gender bias in this information? That's a very good question. The second one is, I don't know what you mean by the gender bias in the use of AI in climate change. The bias that seems to end up transforming everything, also the way things are communicated and the pressing need to find solutions for climate change. Probably it all comes from a bias that can condition the development of women. Because it seems that we communicate things differently, I believe. I think I put threw too many things into it. I mix way too many things. Well, yeah, I think that exists, and it's something you can put your fingers on. And what you said about climate change is the first thing we need to do is to lower the AI carbon print, because it's huge. Instead of moving towards bigger and more powerful models, we need to move towards models that are just as predictive with a lower carbon print. That's the first thing. And there's also a lot being done around decarbonization. AI has been used to decarbonize very polluting industries. A few weeks ago, one of my colleagues working with the cement industry, because it adds 80% of the global emissions. So he's working on an AI system to help decision-making in the cement industry, and they are reducing their emissions to a big extent. So there is much that can be done. There is not as much about gender biases, but there is a lot of application here. Maria, thank you very much. Big round of applause. Give it up for her.
Turno de Sonia.
María.
Maria, poetry, science, and other possible languages. She's visible now. Yesterday, silenced to death. We choose today to donate. We choose activism for survival.